Alright guys, just gonna wait and see how long it takes for you to get here. I guess I could start talking about something so that whenever people watch this back on replay, it doesn't just look like someone sitting here. See, we have people joining us. Hold on one second. There we go. Let me see if I turn it this way, maybe I can, uh, there we go. For some reason it's sideways today, the scrolls are. There. Excellent. Very good. Guatemala. Very nice. Very nice. Okay, guys. Um, just looking to see who else coming on. Thanks for being with me. This has been an incredibly busy week, and tomorrow. You remember a few weeks ago I was recording a class, and not just a class, an entire course with Sounds True, who's my publisher, on angel magic, and we're calling it the Royal Science, or the Sovereign Science. Tomorrow I go back and record a few pickups, little things that weren't clear in the recording or that they want to sound a different way, whatever. I go back and do those tomorrow. So that's what Leanne is asking, let me see if I can get him to come back. Here we go. Leanne is asking, are your books sort of done by a form of automatic writing? Uh, that's really hard to say for me, just because, different people have different ideas of what automatic writing mean. It means something completely different to some people than it does to others. But I will tell you this, I can only write when it feels like I'm being given something to write. Like if I just pick a time, a random time, like say 30 minutes from now, uh, and decide I'm going to sit down at this same time every single day and write, 4 pages of writing. Anything that I produce during that time will be, for the most part, usually useless crap. Um, However, there are times when all of a sudden something just hits me really hard and I know I have to get this out, that I'm supposed to be writing this. So it's not channeled writing as in, or automatic writing as in like channeling an outside intelligence. It's more like, I guess, just when the muse comes, allowing the muse to speak through me. And that's, to be honest, that's what is very rewarding to me. Just writing my own thoughts, my own words, it doesn't really do much for me. It's not rewarding at all. But whenever you have it spilling through you and you set out to write it, uh, that is like scratching an itch that nothing else in the world reaches for me. That's why I've always loved writing, and why it felt like it was something I was supposed to be doing. Let me see. I'm going to look at your questions real quick. Someone says, hey, Cage Dweller says, hey Damien, can you reinforce in me that I'm doing something when I do these rituals? I just haven't sharpened my other eyes yet, please. And I think what Cage Dweller is asking is basically saying that when he or she, I'm not sure, I can't tell by the name, sorry, but when they're doing this ritual, or these rituals like the middle pillar and the lesser banishing, that they are not seeing anything, they're not experiencing anything yet. And the only thing I can tell you is keep going. I can tell you uh, what it'll be like, what you'll experience, but again, that's just my words. You know, we don't really know something until we experience it ourselves, and you won't ever experience it if you stop. Uh, that's why the practice part of these rituals is so important. You know, a lot of people think that learning magic is just about reading books. You know, I've seen people that collected entire, like literally houses full of books on magic because they thought that that's what makes you a magician. What really makes us a magician is doing magic. Let me see. Cage Dweller is a lady. Very good. I will remember that in the future. Uh, Andrew says, can you speak more on the Sumerian LBRP and the colors associated with each deity? Yeah, well, I'll tell you what I use, and I use them, you know, they're not elemental. First off, you know, when we're doing elemental and an elemental LBRP, and we're using the archangels of the elements, we visualize them in the colors of the elements they're associated with. Well, whenever you're working with these Sumerian entities, you are not working with elemental intelligences. You're working on something from a much higher, more subtle plane. You know, closer to celestial, but even higher or more subtle than like planetary, and also more than the constellations. What they represent, like Anu, Enlil, and Enki, especially, were the fixed stars, and you know what that is the fixed stars. For example, Anu was the constellation of Draco. Well, when you're at the time that the ancient Sumerians, when polytheism was the dominant religion in the land, the pole star for Earth, like if you visualize a pole of light running directly up through the center of the Earth, all the way from the bottom through the top, at the top it would have been pointing towards the constellation of Draco, Anu. Well, this changes every so often. I can't remember how many years. It's moving now so that it'll be pointing towards Polaris. But back then, it would have been pointing towards a star called Thuban, Thuban, in the constellation of Draco. And this is why a lot of those, you know, old what do you call them, like sites were built. Like, for example, if you've ever heard of Angkor Wat, it's this temple in, I believe it's Cambodia, that they found it just out in the middle of nowhere. It's a huge, intricate, beautiful city, and it's built to mirror the constellation of Draco, because it was built during that same time period, like around the time period that the Sumerians would have been, you know, building their stuff. But every so often, let me see. Let me get back to the question. So the colors that I give to them are just typical colors that were ascribed to these entities in ancient Sumer. So, for example, whenever I do Anu, Anu is always white, and Enlil is always white. But Enlil is like a brighter, more brilliant light. You know, Anu is just white. Enlil is like brilliant, you know, a brilliant diamond white. Inky is purple, like a light purplish color, and Inanna is green. She's the one that does correspond to the planetary, because Inanna is a planetary intelligence, whereas these others are the intelligences of the fixed stars. And also, what you're talking about when you're talking about Anu, Enlil, and Enki, this was a very, very big teaching point in Sumer. So for example, let me see what someone's asking real quick. So what I mean, like what they Anu, Enlil, and Enki were the very first holy trinity. You know, you had other trinities come later down the road, like Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva in Hinduism, and the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit of Christianity, and the Maiden Mother Crone of, you know, like matriarchal paganism. Um, Anu, Enlil, and Enki were the very first trinity. What they represented, and this is one of those things, like I said, I dropped out of school when I was in ninth grade, so I didn't learn a lot of stuff like, you know, higher maths or astronomy or chemistry or, you know, any of this sort of stuff, physics, any of that. So a lot of this I've had to figure out as I went along, but there is within astronomy and in science and navigation, there they have a concept that they call the celestial sphere. What this means is if you um, I'll come back to this in just a second because somebody asked about not NASA claims to have found a 13th zodiacal sign. Um, they actually did not find that. You know, that's one of those things, like Crowley said, that science is always discovering some little scrap of magical wisdom and making a big fuss about how clever they are. People have known about that 13th zodiac sign all the way back from ancient Sumer. It was used for thousands of years up until Babylon, and the Babylonians cut it out and went down to 12. Um, just, you know, another thing I don't understand, it's kind of like leap year, you know, like how we end up with one weird random day every 4 years or something to do with math. It was something in that same reasoning that they took that 13th sign out of the zodiac. That 13th sign is actually my sign. It's the sign that I was born in, the serpent bearer, they call it. But going back to Enki, Anu, and Enlil, um, there is a concept in science and astronomy called the celestial sphere. And what this means is, imagine if you took the Earth, if the Earth is in space, and you took the entire universe and shaped it into a sphere of stars around the Earth. So that the Earth is a sphere, and then you've got the universe, all of the stars that you see out in the nighttime sky, shaped into another sphere around the Earth. The reason they do this is so that they can refer to, you know, like different stars in different locations, and people will know what they're talking about. People will be able to find them. You know, you can map them. If you do that, then you can map them on a two-dimensional surface. But anyway, the celestial sphere, if you divide it into three equal, or not even equal, if you divide it into three portions, you have the northern celestial sphere, or the northern part of the celestial sphere, which would be, you know, the top stars. You have the southern celestial hemisphere, which would be the bottom stars, and you have the equatorial stars that runs around the middle of it. So the middle stars, that was Anu. The top stars, that was Enki. The bottom stars, that was Enlil. I'm sorry, the top stars are Enlil, the bottom stars are Enki, the stars around the middle are Anu. This is why, you know, when you first start invoking archangels of the constellations and the planets, it feels incredibly powerful. You know, it feels like you're just, it gets stronger all the time. Well, whenever you invoke like one of these, this major first big trinity, Anu, Enlil, and Enki, you're not invoking just one star, and you're not invoking just one constellation the way you are with angels. You are invoking an entire third of the heavens. This is why, like when I first started to do these invocations, the Sumerian invocations, keep in mind I had done the angel ones for years before I ever started doing the Sumerian ones. But once I did start to do the Sumerian ones, it felt so much more powerful than the angel ones that it was just insane. It takes you a while to adjust and adapt to the energy. Let me look through your questions real quick. Do you think spirit guides, Jen is asking, do you think spirit guides are essentially the same as angels? And I'll be honest with you, I don't know. Because the reason I say that is because once again, it's one of those words like when you're talking about spirit guides and when you're talking about angels, both I guess they're both words that are so loaded with preconceived ideas of what they mean to different people. Like a spirit guide may be something completely different to you than it is to me, like what I think of it as. Same way as an angel. You may think of as an angel as one thing, and I think of it as something else. Uh, but the thing about stuff like that, like the spirit guide thing, one of the reasons that I can't speak on it is because it's not part of magic. It's not part of the teachings of astrotheurgy. Um, People come to me all the time and they start telling me just anything you can imagine, from dreams that they had to conversations they've had with spirit guides to, I mean, really anything on the face of the earth. For some reason, people automatically think when you're talking about magic that it encompasses all of these things. Everything from UFOs to dream interpretation to, like even numerology in magic is not the same thing that most people think of when they think of numerology now. Most people, when they think of numerology now, go by this system where it's kind of odd. You just break down numbers until you get a number smaller than 9, I think it is. Like they'll say 9 plus 2 is 11. Like if they see the number 92, they'll say, well, 9 plus 2 is 11, and 11 is 1 plus 1, so there's 2. So what does the 2 symbolize? That is not the numerology that we use in magic. The numerology used in magic, there's two different kinds. One is called gematria, and it is a huge, intricate, sprawling system based on Hebrew numerology. And the place where you can probably find the most information if you're wanting to learn that is a book by Aleister Crowley called 777. All this book is, 777, all it is you can look up pretty much anything you can think of on the face of the earth, from stones and crystals and plants and trees and animals and numbers, um, you know, gods, angels, spheres on the tree of life, you name it. You can look it up in this book and find what it corresponds with. So, for example, if you're wanting to work with the energy of Jupiter, which is about prosperity and expansion and all that kind of stuff, you could look up different angels that correspond with the planet Jupiter. And yes, that's exactly what it is, a book of correspondence. And it's like the book of correspondence in ceremonial magic. It's lasted a long time because it's like the defining book, the one that everybody kind of uses. Um, Jared is saying, what are the mantras for the Sumerian middle pillar? Uh, this is another thing that has a link to every part and different interpretations. But anyway, before I go on to that, what I was getting at is when I'm talking about magic, the only thing that I can speak on and that I feel qualified to speak on or answer questions about or anything else is astrotheurgy. It's what I do. So there will be a lot of stuff that don't fall in that realm that I won't be able to give you information on. Like say dream interpretation um, or spirit guides or whatever it is. I know my field of study, knowledge, expertise, whatever you want to call it, is one area. It's like I have a specialty, and a lot of things don't fall in that realm. Give me one second. Siva Kami I think that's how you say your name. I hope I'm not mangling it. I know who you are. I'm just not sure how to pronounce the name. But she says the Kabbalistic Encyclopedia by David Godwin is great for gematria correspondence too. Yeah, that's another really good one. And keep in mind, both of these books, the Kabbalistic Encyclopedia by David Godwin and 777 by Crowley, neither of these books are fun. You know, neither of them are exciting. None of them are like a rip-roaring adventures. Um, they are dry, boring, not something you read, just something you use when you need to know information, you know, like reference books. So don't be expecting a roaring great time. Let me see. Someone, Andrew asked, do you have any experience with the NYC local orders like the OTO here or anything like that? Yes, I have. The thing is, I'm going to be honest with you. When you're talking about magical orders in the U.S., but particularly on the East Coast, there's not a great deal of anything going on over here. Um, you know, you have a lot of people that are practicing under that banner, but to be honest, they don't. You know, it's you're not going to learn a lot. Most of the orders, the most of the people that I've learned the most from by far were men in European orders that were over here for one reason or another. Um, the European orders, honestly, are so far beyond what you're going to find in the American system that it's almost like two completely different things. That being said, if you do want to do where in Europe, Scandinavia, Italy and Scandinavia. Those two places uh, are where the people that I would consider masters, and that I've learned from. That's where they came from. Um, Let me see. Give me 1 second. What were we talking about? Oh, the orders and things like that. Oh, what I was going to get to with that is, even though you know I just said that about the U.S. orders and lodges, things like that. However, what I found from my own personal experience, there may be a lot out there that I haven't seen. You know, this is one of those things that I can't claim to have seen or experienced everything. There might be a lot out there that I don't know that I haven't come across. But what I have come across, I tend to believe that in the U.S., by far, there are more people active in magic on the West Coast than there are on the East. And I'll give you an example. If you come into New York City and you're looking for a magic shop, you know, like when you're looking for herbs or a particular book or a candle, whatever it is, there are literally two magic shops in New York, period. One is like a witchcraft supply store. Um, but you know, neither one of them are like big bustling stores. Whereas if you go out to the West Coast, uh, there's, I mean, they're all over the place. There's tons of them. I always point people towards, you know, if you really want to start learning the basics of magic, like numerology, the tarot correspondences, the tree of life, if you really want to start learning all of that, there is a woman in Los Angeles named Naha Armandi who runs a school called 22 Teachings. And the reason they call them 22 Teachings is because in the major arcana of the tarot, there are 22 cards. And she bases a lot of what she teaches on those cards. Um, that's where I always point people towards. And once again, like I said, she's on the West Coast. But again, same thing with the magicians that I've known here. You know, by far, the magicians that I've met who have been of a completely different caliber than you're going to find in the U.S. They were all in New York, and they were all living in New York for a short periods of time. But most of them, I mean, they all belonged to European orders. They were just here for short periods of time. They belonged to European orders, um, and where was I going with that? Oh, and again, these weren't people that were doing like classes or anything like that. These were people that reached out to me for one reason or another, and it's never what people think it's going to be. Most people have this idea that like being connected to an order or a lodge or something is like having a community or something like that, and it's not at all. Usually in like a real order, a real lodge, usually what happens is they don't even explain a lot to you of what you're going to experience. And I mean, what you're going to experience. Well, what you're going to experience in any way. And I'll give you an example. When you are initiated into these orders, you will not even meet the person who is doing your initiation until the initiation. It will be someone you have never laid eyes on, never talked to. You will be in a completely strange foreign environment with completely strange foreign people. It's supposed to be like a shock to your system. But they don't even explain to you fully what's going to happen in these initiation ceremonies. They don't explain to you fully what's going to happen to your consciousness, to your psyche as you practice. Basically, what lodges and orders do is if done correctly, they will give you tiny little bits of information, but it will be your job to really dig into that. They'll give you some little scrap of something, and it will be entirely up to you how much you learn about it, how far, for example, and it will be as subtle as, like right now, how many times have we talked about something like, the solar body on here, like creating the solar body. Um, Something like that, what will happen is you will be in a conversation with these people and they will give you some little slip of information like that, like solar body, what is that? It's going to be up to you to figure that out. They're not going to spill everything out for you or spell everything out for you. Um, Yes, Jen, she says it sounds like you can get the same experience yourself or with one teacher you trust. Absolutely. The thing, I guess, you have to do the work yourself. You can have the greatest teacher in the world, but if you're not doing the work yourself, it's not going to have any effect on you. It's not going to change you in any way. If you have to be the one to put the work in. It doesn't matter if you belong to the greatest order, have the greatest teacher, have the greatest tools, have every book on magic. If you don't actually put the work into doing the rituals, the rest of it isn't going to do any good whatsoever. And that, even in orders, you have what they call, like checkbook members, which everyone knows. Um, that what they're doing is these people aren't going to be doing much magic at all, but they help keep orders moving. They help keep orders afloat. And it's one of those things. It's like it's before you could even begin to um, have conversations with some of these people, you would have to have uh, at least completed the work of the second order, where you are what we call, what in magic is called an adept. An adept means someone who is completely proficient at magic. They've learned all the basic rituals and can do those to manifest something or for spiritual sustenance or whatever the hell it is. They've mastered them, can do them. And this is somebody that will be so far beyond uh, your average person's ability to shape reality, do magic, um, that a lot of times they will think that, oh, this is it. I've learned magic. I've learned all there is to it. That's when it's important to come in contact with, this is why it's important to come in contact with people who know more than we do, because you will hit a plateau. Uh, you will reach a point where you have done everything you need to do, or everything you can do with the amount of information that you have, and you will need someone to provide a little piece of information that will allow you to uh, get to the next level. The baked nurse says, but what if you can't find anyone? Um, you'll find it when it's time, really. And it might not even be a person. It could be, you will come across something that will give you a piece of information you need, whether it's something that you see on TV, whether it's something you read in a book, whether it's something you come across on the internet, whatever it is. If you pay attention, if you pay attention, and like Jen is saying, she says magic will make it happen. That's absolutely right. Do magic for it. But this isn't going to be, it'll come to you. It will. That's all I can tell you. And it doesn't come when we want it to. There are, magic has its own sense of timing. It comes when it wants to. Yeah, she says, I just feel defeated sometimes. Yeah, you will feel that way a lot of times. I used to. I think most people do whenever they first start really devoting themselves to this, and they get disappointed that there aren't other people doing it, that they can't talk, there's no one really for them to talk to about this sort of stuff. And that's why it is you know, what I mean by someone to talk to. When you're on this path, the thing you constantly want is to talk to someone who knows more than you. That's what it comes down to. And the further you go along, the rarer and rarer that becomes. If you've been doing magic for 20 years, you're not going to come across a million people who are going to know a hell of a lot more than you do. But that's the thing you still look for, because everybody wants that feeling. Yes, it's an amazing feeling, but we can't live for those peak times. When something that's so magical that it's mind-bending, and you see it happening a mile away, and it's magic right then, instead of having to look back in hindsight. Uh, those times, those time periods, those moments are going to be few and far between. We cannot live for those or give in to defeat or despair when we're not experiencing one of those. We have to learn to just keep putting one foot in front of the other and doing our practices here and now, and get lost in that and let the rest take care of itself. Uh, Yeah. So Jessica says part of the dedication to the path is pushing through. That is absolutely right. There will come times, not only when you just feel defeated, but also when you may reach a point where you feel like, I'm tired of doing this. I am tired of doing these same rituals day after day, week after week. even though you know what they do to you, even though you've seen the difference in your life before and after doing them, and you've seen how much of a difference it makes, you will still reach a point where you feel, even then, like, I don't want to do this anymore. If you push through those times, if you push through the times when you feel defeated, if you push through the times when you feel despair, and force yourself to keep doing the work, even when you don't want to, even when you don't feel like it, that's when you get those big, big rewards, those big, amazing experiences that come through when you don't give up your faith, when you don't give up your practice during the hard times. Uh, that's when you really, really get rewarded, when you stay true even through those difficult situations. Yeah, Darian says using tools can impact and maintain interest. That is absolutely true, and it took me a long time to learn that because honestly, I got kind of attached to, one of the goals of magic is you want to be able to do magic at any time, at any place. Be dropped off butt naked in the middle of the jungle somewhere with nothing, no wand, no herbs, no nothing, and automatically still be able to do the same level of magic that you could do in your temple with all your paraphernalia. That's the ideal goal. However, like he was just saying, I've found that whenever you do feel like you're in that slump, when you do feel defeated, or whenever you feel like I'm just tired of doing this over and over, sometimes adding a new element, like using a new wand, or starting to work with herbs in a different way, or using candles in your ceremonies, if you add stuff like that, yes, sometimes it can rejuvenate your interest again and get you excited about it. Makes you start doing makes you start loving to do it again. Someone Cosmic Drug says, do you prefer to do your rituals with your eyes closed or open? Closed, just because I can visualize easier that way. And I'm going to go in just a second, but I saw another really good question that reminds me of an exercise that I'll give you guys that you can practice if you want to. Someone said, can you give some sort of practice that allows you to see auras better, being able to see people's energy system? There is. It is one of the easiest practices that you will ever find out there. All you need to do it is a white wall, like a background, a white wall, and all you have to do is stand like far back from the wall and hold your hand at arm's length like this, and you're going to look through the middle of your hand. Don't look at your hand. Look through the middle of your hand all the way at the wall on the other side of the room. Imagine that there's a tiny black dot on that wall, like right about here, like on the wall, so that you're looking through here, looking through your hand at the black dot on the wall like this, and just look at the black dot. Like don't have a sharp gaze. Let your gaze relax, almost like you're seeing your hand out of the periphery of your vision, but your main focal point is the dot on the wall. If you'll do that for, usually this only takes like 5 minutes or less, you'll start to eventually see there's an outline around your hand. It will look like, when you're driving in a car on a hot summer day and you see heat rising off of the road in the distance, where it almost looks like the road is wet far away, and you see those like vapor lines coming off of it, you'll start to see that around your hand. If you try to shift your gaze from the dot to your hand, it'll be gone. You won't be able to see it. You've got to take your gaze back to the dot. You'll start to see more and more that outline, that energy rising up off of your hand. Whenever you figured out how to do that, then you can do the same thing with other people. See them, look at them standing against a wall, and soften your gaze, and you'll start to see the energy outline around them. That's the very first way and the easiest way that I was ever, you're not going to see a bunch of stuff like you hear people talking about, like colors in the aura and all that. You're not going to see a bunch of that in the beginning. what you're for the most part going to see is just like heat rising off of the highway, and you'll see that off of your hand. Okay, guys. Tomorrow I will be recording the pickups for the course. Just reading the last comments. Tomorrow I will be filming the course, but I am almost completely through with the interviews and stuff for promoting Angels and Archangels. I've got a couple of little last things to do this week, but for the most part, I will be done with it, and before you know it, I will be back here writing and doing this constantly. I'm also in the process of moving. I decided a couple of days ago to move to Seattle, just because the energy here does not feel like home anymore. Gustav said move to Mexico. That's an option I'm looking at too, for at least a while. But I'm going to move to Seattle, and yeah, that's what I will be doing in the very near future. My goal is to get out of here by September 15th or earlier, if possible. So hopefully I will meet some of you guys from Seattle when I'm there. Okay, I will talk to you as soon as I possibly can. Thank you guys for being with me, and I really enjoyed this. All right, I'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.